Kenya hits a fiscal dead end. We look at how limited borrowing forces the government to dig into your pocket just to stay afloat. The road to 2027 becomes a battleground. We reveal how hired goons and state machinery silence the voices of ordinary citizens. On the effect of climate shock to farmers, we show you how farmers harvest withered stalks for animal fodder after a total crop failure. Kenya loses its seat at the table. We explore how heavy debt strips away our independence and leaves us at the mercy of foreign lenders. Hello and welcome to Infosight News, coming to you live from TV7 Newsroom. I'm Juliet Kamau. Viewers in Kenya and around the world for joining us. We are with you for the next 25 minutes. Stay with us for top stories from Africa and beyond. This is Infosight News. You can join the conversation on our social media handles at Infosight News on X, Instagram and TikTok, and the hashtag remains Infosight News TV7. On to our first story, with national debt now hovering at a staggering 68% of GDP and interest payment consuming nearly 70% of annual collected revenue, the borrow-to-grow model hits the wall. This fragility has shifted from a government headache to a direct cost to you, as tax shilling are now being diverted from medicine, school, among other sectors, to pay off global creditors. For the average Kenyan business, this trend has triggered a dual crisis: a scarcity of available credit and an increase in rates that makes business expansion nearly impossible. Our correspondent Zainab Said files this special report.
For decades, government borrowing has been a key driver of development in Kenya, helping to build infrastructure and support public services meant to boost economic growth. However, as of 2026, the weight of that borrowing has been slowing down the economy as more government revenue is directed towards servicing loans and less money is left to circulate within the local economy. This has created a tight financial environment that is now affecting traders, workers, and households across the country.
Vitu zinaongezwa tu, kila kitu, all taxes zinaongezwa tu.
The backbone of Kenya economy, that is small and medium-sized enterprises, are among the hardest hit as access to affordable credit has become increasingly difficult. Banks are increasingly reluctant to lend to the businesses, choosing to instead lend to the government, which is considered a safer borrower. This has reduced the amount of credit available to entrepreneurs who rely on loans to grow and sustain their operations. I spoke to a small-scale trader who says beyond the statistics and policy debates, the impact of rising debt is being felt most sharply by small business owners who depend on affordable loans to keep their business running.
The economy has been so bad because to sustain like the way we used to, like our shop is 2 years. When we were starting, like we put the graph tungeweza kusustain and do our sums, bring in new things like every week. Lakini like from last year things are not.
Economists warn that without careful debt management and measures taken to that stimulate private sector leading, the economy risks entering a cycle of slow economic growth. Reporting for Infosight News from Nairobi, I'm Zainab Said.
And now our correspondent Zainab Said joins us live. Zainab, your report paints a very sobering picture. We've been hearing about debt distress for years, but this feels different. We would like to know, how is this actually manifesting to the person on the street today? And realistically, what options are left if the government can't sustain its economy?
Well, there is a massive disconnect. Banks are looking at the government, which needs to borrow nearly 900 billion Kenyan shillings locally this year alone. That according to the latest budget policy statement. And the banks see the government as safer bet. So when the government offers to buy money from banks at high rates, the banks have no incentives to lend to a small business at a lower rate.
Zainab, let's bring it down to basics. If the government is taking all the money from the banks and the citizens are already stretched thin, where is the growth supposed to come from? Is there a realistic way out of this hole that does not involve more years of debt distress?
To answer your second question, the realistic way out is a tough transition. The government has realized it cannot keep borrowing its way out of a debt. So they are moving towards what they call asset monetization. This means instead of taking a loan to build a road, they sell or lease things they already own, like sugar companies, government hotels, or even shares in the Kenya Pipeline Company to get cash without adding to the debt.
A data-driven reality, it seems the bottom in bottom-up carries the heaviest load. Zainab Said, thank you for that report.
Thank you, Juliet. Back to you.
To help us analyze what economic fragility and debt distress means to the ordinary Kenyan, I'm now joined by George Mwaro, who is an economic analyst. Welcome to Infosight News, George. The numbers in the 2026 budget policy statement are shocking. We are looking at a government that needs to mop up 1 trillion from the local banks to pay its bills. From where you sit, are we witnessing the final stage of debt trap?
Where we sit, we are already vulnerable. When you look at our budget, each and every financial year, the budget keeps on growing. And there is no any financial year where Kenya, we were able to finance our budget based on our own source revenue. Most of the time, in fact, if not all, since 2013, we've been depending on debt to finance that budget. So we are becoming vulnerable, and each and every time, each and every year, we keep borrowing. Statistics show, like yesterday, I was going through a certain article where they say that Kenya is borrowing over 10 million a day, 10 million Kenya shillings a day. So that shows you that we are likely not to come out of this situation unless we make the right decision at the ballot.
Should the Mwananchi be worried that there will be fewer medicines in our clinics, delays in school funding resulting from economic crisis?
Yes, they should be. They should be, because in the case of a small disability, for example, we might have something like a crisis, a global crisis, like currently we're having war in the Gulf state, which is basically disrupting the supply of basic commodities like fuel. That means that the price will go up. So the government will spend a lot of its revenue to pay for that. Remember, it was not prepared. And that means that the citizens have to be worried of that. Another thing is like in case of a foreign currency, the Kenyan shilling compared to the dollar, that becomes a very big challenge, because a lot of the larger percentage of the revenue will be spent to pay that debt. And that leaves so little on the side of disposable, on the side of provision of basic amenities for the citizens.
There are reports by organizations such as Oxfam Kenya that suggest this burden is not equally shared. There are also concerns that there is a gap between the rich and the poor. How much is this gap?
We have a very big gap in Kenya between the rich and the poor. Yes, and when it comes to servicing the debt, the poor pays more than the rich.
Why so?
This is because the tax system of Kenya taxes more the poor than the rich. Remember, the poor have spent almost all their income, all their disposable income on the basic amenities, which are taxed through VAT. So that makes them, in fact, majority of them, they spend 0 shillings on development or on investments. So if you earn 8,000 a month, you have people who earn 8,000 a month, and all 8,000 goes on the basic amenities, which are taxed through VAT. You see, you are paying more than this somebody who is earning 100,000 and is only spending 20% on the basic amenities. The rest is investing.
Currently, banks are prioritizing government when it comes to giving them loans for high interest rates that it bears. Where does this leave the common Mwananchi who relies on the same loan to start a business?
That is very critical. And that's very critical, and actually it has led to most businesses to collapse.
Yeah.
One important factor that basically underlines this is I think that's the reason why you see nowadays banks are making abnormal profits. Banks are making abnormal profits. Many people have never known the secret behind it. The banks are lending to the government, where there is sure returns.
Indeed, we are navigating an economy where both the state and its citizens are both fighting for survival. Thank you, George Morrow, for bringing us clarity to this complex issue. Moving on to our next story. It is a headline that is already sparking intense debate across the country: power over people. As we inch toward the 2027 general elections, the shadows of the past seem to be lengthening. We are seeing a worrying trend where hired goons and state machinery are becoming the loudest voices in our governance and electoral spaces. Our correspondent Jobo Juma has been looking into how governance is being traded for electoral malpractice. Take a look.
Running for office in 2027 does not just mean winning votes, it means surviving a physical and financial assault. On one side, hired gangs are being used to map territories and violently block rivals from meeting the people. On the other side, the state is using its power to target anyone who disagrees with the current leadership.
This regime is planning to reach the 2027 election because you can see them militarizing the police. You can see how they are rearranging the Supreme Court, and you can also see they are doing everything to whip emotions, to set community against community.
When the state pen and the hired gun become the loudest voices in our democracy, the ordinary citizen is left wondering if their vote will ever truly count once again.
You can see that both the government and the so-called opposition are in top gear, trying to walk around the country, trying to convince people that they offer the best in terms of solutions as far as the country is concerned.
On the other side, people fear that by the end of the election day arrives, the result will have already been written at the backrooms of power. On the streets, the anxiety is palpable.
The previous IPCs have been stealing from our votes. They have been putting people by force. You see, you elect somebody you like, then they force you with deadbeat dad.
The law is very clear. State resources belong to the taxpayer, not the candidate. But as we head to the 2027 election, the line between government power and politics intimidation is fading. When hired guns replace the ballot box, it isn't just a campaign, it is a crisis for our democracy. Reporting for Infosight News, Nairobi, I'm Jobo Juma.
With me now in studio is Ezra Mark Odhiambo, a political and constitutional expert. First, how would you describe governance and power in Kenya?
Power is bought in my country. And that's something, as an individual, I'd say I'm passionate to do civic education about it, to educate my peers, to educate the Kenyan country, the Kenyan citizens as a whole, so that they do not view it whereby that we can only buy power, or power belongs to a given class or a given group. Because when you look at the people who really go for these services, be it medical, be it education, be it any whatever service you need, is the common wananchi. Many of the times you see these people go to India for their the treatment. So systems are there, systems are working, but they are working for few individuals. But what we need to advocate for, or what we need to do as a country, is at least make a leeway for the systems to work. When the systems work, there is a proper flow of power, channel of power, whereby we don't have to question a minor secretary whose work was supposed to be done, but was done via a phone call.
We've seen every time we are approaching the general elections in Kenya, the government takes its time to reconstitute the commission for IEBC. Does this have anything to do with abuse of power? The IEBC independent.
Forgive me for saying this, but it's the dire truth. IEBC is independent on paper, independent in definition, independent in its acronyms, Independent Electoral Commission of Kenya. So, but when you get to the reality, it's not independent. My thought about it, I'm an overthinker and I love overthinking such things because it gives me a bigger picture. When we have another independent body instituting an independent body, then I think we'd have 50% or 70% independence. But now this is a scenario whereby a sitting president who is yearning to maybe stay there for 40 years, constituting such a body. That gives room for electing or for appointing people who would do what I want as a sitting president. We've seen things happen, so-and-so resigns or so-and-so. Why would they do that? If you're passionate about serving Kenyans, then you'd stay there. So it's not independent per se, and its independence is questionable.
Thank you, Ezra. Before we wrap up, let's see what we have online. At Mercy J says the 2027 toolkit looks exactly like the old one. Where is the reform? At Justice Seeker says state machinery belongs to the taxpayer, not the candidate. It is a crisis that cannot be voted away. After the break, we take you to the front line where farmers have been forced to turn their ruined harvest into fodder, and a new desperate competition for resources is beginning to take the root. Don't go anywhere. This special report is next.
The new 500S. Tested for bad boys.
Welcome back. We now turn to a crisis that is biting hard at the very foundation of our survival. Are you in the frontline regions witnessing this struggle for water and fertile ground? Talk to us using the hashtag #ClimateShocksKE. I traveled to one of the hardest hit areas to witness this harvest of despair. Take a look.
They call farming the breadbasket of the nation, but today the basket is empty. The rich red soil of Kenya has now nothing to bear. This is climate shock and its ruthless effect, a silent disaster that is stealing the future of our farms.
Majina naitwa John Kamau na hapa tuko ni Murang'a County, Kiharu constituency. Mimi ni mkulima, wale tunaitaga small scale farmer.
The rains that used to be predictable have vanished.
Watu wa environment wanaweza sema mvua itanyesha mwezi wa 4, ianze mwezi wa 3. So ukiwa mkulima utakuwa umejitayarisha.
According to data, we are looking at a near total crop failure, but statistics don't capture the heartbreak of a farmer watching their produce fail.
Utapata wakati mahindi iko tayari na mvua inaanza, hiyo mahindi inaoza. Kwa hivyo mkulima anakuwa na changamoto mingi. Lakini sasa ukifanya kama vile mimi huwa nafanya hapa, huwezi ukakosa kitu. Ukikosa hii utapata hii ingine.
As the crisis deepens, farmers are being forced to rewrite the rules of survival. It is no longer about what they want to plant, but what can actually survive the heat.
Inaita terere. Hii ni drought resistant. So wakati maharagwe imefail, hii lazima utapata kitu.
To survive climate effect on harvest, farmers are now mixing their fields, hoping that if one plant dies, another will stand. It is a desperate attempt to keep the granaries far from going completely empty.
So kama nasikia mahindi haikufanya vizuri, ukiona hii type ya mahindi hakuna kitu ilitoa. So hizi tunatumia kama ni chakula ya mbuzi na ng'ombe.
It is not just about how they plant, but what they plant.
Inaitwa pomegranate. Ukipanda tuseme, ukipanda inachukua miaka kama 2 na nusu ili unaanza kupata matunda. Na matunda yake ni iko na vitamin kwa wingi. Asema kama piece moja, kale piece moja kwa market ni kama 100. So ikifanya vizuri, ndio inakusaidia kurudisha hasara yako.
Traditional seeds are being replaced by a tougher drought-resistant varieties. These plants are the last line of defense against a climate that has turned hostile. The farmers are doing their part, but they cannot fight this storm alone.
Serikali huwa inatupatia subsidy, lakini sana wanaleta hiyo fertilizer wakati mimea ishapita kiwango ya kuweka fertilizer. So sisi tukiwa wakulima tunakuwa na changamoto mingi, na ndio sababu mtu hata wakati mwingine unaona kama hii shamba yangu iko mpaka na maembe, iko na machungwa. Ukifero pande moja unapata pande nyingine.
Not just a bad season. It is a total systematic failure. Every withered stalk here, in the name of fodder, represents a family that no longer has harvest to depend on. If climate shock continues to affect farmers, the next crisis will not be fought at political rallies. It will be fought at the table of every Kenyan citizen. Reporting for Infosight News, I'm Juliet Kamau. Now with us in studio is an analyst who will help us dig deeper into how climate shocks affects farmers' produce. Beyond the shock of dry harvest, how often do we measure the impact of climate change on malnutrition?
The invisible impact on nutrition is very detrimental, especially to our young generation. This is because when the carbon dioxide affects the foods and so now we lack proteins, we'll find that our children are not developing well. For instance, if someone lacks calcium, he or she won't have strong bones, understand? So it is a very, very detrimental effect on not only us as an environment, but also us as human beings.
Our current model of climate shock is reactive. We wait for drought or floods so that we can get aid. Why has this transition to a proactive insurance been so slow, and who is benefiting?
It is slow because the policies, before you put a policy into place, we need also to check on the impact of the policies, because we just don't write a policy for maybe to receive grants or anything. No, we have to cross-check the policies, and also we have the governments to governments where they interact, government to government deal, which are the major stakeholders concerning that. So that's why it takes long. Yeah, and so also a lot of formalities, because you just don't cross borders for bringing any other model into the country.
On our X handle at Green Kenya says climate shock is the real national security threat. Forget politics. At Mama Jane says prices of unga are already up. How do we survive this crop failure? Indeed, action must be taken moving onwards. We now move to a story that hits the very heart of our national sovereignty. In an era of shifting global alliances, Kenya finds itself in the middle, from fluctuating fuel prices to the cost of morning loaf of bread. Today, we look at how weakened multilateralism system and a heavy reliance on external powers directly squeezes the pocket of common mwananchi.
For Kenya, this weakened multilateralism means we are often standing alone when negotiating terms that impact everything from debt repayment to trade tariffs take place. When multilateral bodies fail to protect small economies, the result is felt at the kitchen table. As the global tug of war continues, the true cost of our diminished bargaining power isn't measured in diplomatic offices, but in the shrinking basket of the ordinary Kenyan.
So kama mtu anataka either kununua ama kuingilia hii business ya kuuza hizi vitu, anaweza either prefer hizi locally because ukiangalia tax haziko taxable sana. Tunapata bei yake iko pocket friendly, watu wanaweza kuzinunua na purchase at a good price. So hizo zingine za foreign unapata zinakuja na bei ya juu, so pia bei ya juu zinazo na bei ya juu.
Unless we shift from external dependency to internal strength, the common mwananchi remains at the mercy of a world that moves without them. The price of sovereignty is high, but the cost of losing it is a burden this nation cannot afford to carry. Reporting for TV7, I am Baraka Mbili.
Now in studio, I'm joined by George, who will be discussing matters weaken multilateralism and external dependency. George, thank you for joining us. We've seen the report. Kenya's bargaining power seems to be low. How does multilateralism translate to the cost of living?
Multilateralism is the way I understand it is a relationship between nations, between countries. When that relationship weakens, it comes with some consequences. For example, we can say East Africa. When the relationship between East African countries weakens, so that means it becomes so difficult to cross the borders. A lot of implications are put across. High taxation at borders, a lot of waiting time at borders, bureaucratic procedures to cross borders. For example, we want to cross from Uganda to Kenya or from Kenya to Tanzania. It becomes a challenge. How does this affect common mwananchi? Remember, we depend on each other. And when this relationship weakens, Kenya, we sometimes import products from our neighboring countries. So when a lot of taxes are imposed due to a poor relationship between these countries, those high taxation, remember, it is the common mwananchi who pays the taxes. So when taxes are increased at the border, these taxes are transferred to the pocket of the common mwananchi. So it translates to a higher prices of products.
Is weakened multilateralism affecting Kenyan policies, and what structures can be implemented?
First of all, we need to start with the East African Union, whereby the East African community as a state can work together, bond, then they'll have a power when they go out to negotiate on behalf of their citizens. As an African country, continent, they need to come together. When they come together, they become so strong. The bargaining power will go high, will go up.
Thank you, George. That brings us to the end of our special edition, from the streets where power is contested to the fields where the climate is biting and the global stage where bargaining chips are at risk. To the team that hustled to bring these stories to life, and to you for staying throughout this bulletin, thank you so much. Debt distress, electoral malpractice, climate shock, weakened multilateralism. It is a lot to swallow. If you're waiting for the cost of living to go down, make sure you have a comfortable chair. It is going to be a long seat. I'm Juliet Kamau. Stay informed, stay vigilant.